Hello and welcome to the Under the Radar with Tim Peacock podcast, which on this occasion lives up to its name by devoting a complete episode to a terrific album from the late 1970s named after a famous satellite station. The album in question, Goon Hilly Down, was named after the Goon Hilly satellite Earth station located at the real-life Goon Hilly Downs on the Lizard Peninsula in Cornwall, the very southwesterly tip of England. Once the site of the largest satellite Earth station in the world, Goon Hilly Downs has gone down in history after its first dish, named Arthur, received the first live transatlantic television broadcast from the United States via the legendary Telstar satellite in July 1962. Bearing in mind this space-related theme, it's fitting that the album Goon Hilly Down should be recorded by a band called The Planets, though unlike the record's near namesake, their music largely flew below the mass media radar. It's hard to credit exactly why that happened, for the band was the brainchild of a versatile singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who is still effortlessly knocking out great tunes today. With hindsight, we can only put the band's failure to register on the mainstream radar down to the sheer volume of great records vying for our attention in the late 1970s, rather than because of any lack of quality in the Planet's music per se. As many Merseyside music aficionados likely know, the Planets were formed and fronted by Steve Lindsey, bassist and sometimes songwriter with the pre-punk Liverpool band Deaf School, a much-loved and widely acclaimed act who recorded 3 albums for Warner Brothers before splitting up in 1978. Also featuring the likes of guitarist, songsmith and future Madness and Elvis Costello producer Clive Langer and vocalist Steve Allen, aka Enrico Cadillac, who later featured in the original Mirrors with future Lightning Seeds frontman Ian Brody, Deaf School were absolutely brimming over with talent. Indeed, their 3 albums also showcase Steve Lindsey's burgeoning skills as he penned several of Deaf School's classic tracks, including Final Act, Operator, and All Queued Up. Following Deaf School's dissolution, Lindsey formed The Planets and signed a deal with Rialto Records, a sub-label of the Pinnacle imprint, which also enjoyed success with records such as the Corgis' Everybody's Got to Learn Sometime and the mobile synth pop classic Drowning in Berlin. Aligned with Rialto, Lindsey made 2 excellent albums as The Planets, Goon Hilly Down and 1980's equally underrated Spot. Lindsey made the latter with the band's latter-day touring lineup featuring guitarist Barry Lyons, keyboardist Chris Scornia and drummer Larry Tolfree. But Goon Hilly Down was created by Lindsey and an all-star cast of studio contributors, including future of the Siouxsie The Banshees stalwart drummer Budgie and guitarist Tony Wimshurst, plus 3 members of Ian Dury's backing group, the Blockheads, keyboardist Mickey Gallagher, guitarist John Turnbull, and drummer Charlie Charles. Rialto first issued one of Goon Hilly Down's best songs, Break It To Me Gently, as a single, with Lindsey billed as Steve Tempo. However, after they were officially named The Planets, Lindsey's new act first came to the public's attention with the release of the single Lines in July 1979. A spacey pop reggae hybrid with a haunting melody, this seductive track became a bona fide UK top 40 hit, with Lindsey and company even performing it on top of the Pops dressed in spacesuits alongside backing vocalists Kate and Jane Robbins, aka the Satellite Sisters. Released during the autumn of 1979, Goon Hilly Down soon proved that Lindsey had plenty more of a similar calibre in the tank. The album's closing track, I'm on Fire, was fashioned from a reggae-flecked template redolent of lines, but elsewhere Lindsey was adventurous enough to explore different moods and styles. These ranged from the disco-friendly electro-pop of Mile High to the sardonic Elvis Costello-isms of Ball and Chain and the punchy power pop of A Minute Ago. Many clued-in listeners may recognise the latter song as a lean and hungry reworking of Lindsey's classic song Darling, originally recorded for Deaf School's second album, Don't Stop the World. Yet, while it welcomes diversity, Goon Hilly Down's 9 songs are united by their inherent immediacy, and the album remains such a satisfying listen because you're never much more than 30 seconds away from a killer chorus at literally any time. Indeed, both of Line's 2 follow-up singles, Iron for the Iron and a reissued Break It To Me Gently, are still the very epitome of radio-friendly guitar-driven pop. So it's still hard to fathom why neither of these, or Goon Hilly Down itself, failed to make any significant commercial blips, either in the UK or further afield, despite the album receiving a US release through the legendary Motown label. The Planets gigged solidly in support of Goon Hilly Down and went on to make a second lost gem courtesy of 1980's Spot, again issued through Rialto in the UK. However, despite a second brace of brilliant tracks, including the killer singles Don't Look Down and The Storming Intensive Care, that album also flew beneath the radar. And after a lone solo single, the wonderfully quirky She's Locked My Life Up in Her Suitcase, Steve Lindsey threw his energies into music publishing, a rewarding career which he's still involved in today. However, his knack for writing great songs remains intact, and in more recent times, Lindsey has returned to the fray. He reunited with Deaf School for 2017's Let's Do This Again Next Week, and he's recently released his debut solo album, Ping, through the Fretsaw label. Having recently acquired it, I'm only too happy to report that Ping is an absolute must-have for anyone who's enjoyed any of the records Steve Lindsey has been involved in. And it's a record you need to track down in addition to both Goon Hilly Down and Spot, 2 cusp of the 80s classics that still sound out of this world today. So that's all for this episode of Under the Radar with Tim Peacock. However, if you tune in the next time, you'll be welcome to join us as we celebrate an intense late 1980s indie rock classic from a man who's been described as the greatest English singer-songwriter you've never heard before.